$500 billion, a 170-kilometer city with flying taxis, robot servants, and 9 million residents by 2030. That was the pitch. The reality: 2.4 kilometers built, 0 residents, costs spiraling past $1.5 trillion, and a completion date quietly pushed to mid-century. NEOM isn't just behind schedule. It may be the most expensive infrastructure failure ever conceived, and the damage runs far deeper than the budget. In January 2021, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stepped onto the world stage with a vision that defied the boundaries of city building and even imagination. NEOM's flagship, The Line, was introduced as $500 billion of ambition, a city stretching 170 kilometers across the Saudi desert, flanked by 2 mirrored towers rising half a kilometer into the sky. This was not just a place to live, but a promise to rewrite the rules of urban existence. No cars, no streets, only high-speed, autonomous pods gliding silently beneath the surface. Flying taxis would crisscross the airspace. Robot servants, powered by artificial intelligence, would handle every domestic task. An artificial moon, built from a canopy of LEDs, would light the desert night. The entire city would run on 100% renewable energy, drawing power from the sun and wind, with hydrogen storage to balance the grid. By 2030, 9 million people were supposed to call this place home, more than the population of most global capitals, all packed into a seamless, vertical ecosystem. Official renderings showed lush parks suspended in mid-air, cloud-piercing spires, and a lifestyle untouched by the chaos of conventional cities. Investors and dignitaries gathered to hear the Crown Prince declare NEOM the beating heart of Vision 2030, a showcase for the world, a leap into a future where technology and nature could coexist in perfect harmony. The numbers were as bold as the concept: $500 billion, 170 kilometers, 9 million residents, and a city that would rise from nothing in less than a decade. Satellite imagery tells a story that the official renderings never anticipated. Instead of a gleaming 170-kilometer corridor, construction has produced just 2.4 kilometers of tunnel and foundational works. Barely over 1% of the original plan. No residents have moved in. The desert remains empty, interrupted only by scattered machinery and unfinished concrete. The financial outlook has shifted from bold optimism to staggering escalation. Bloomberg's latest reporting places the true cost of NEOM at a minimum of $1.5 trillion, triple the initial $500 billion estimate. Some internal audits suggest the final bill could climb even higher, approaching $8.8 trillion. The completion date, once set for 2030, has slipped by decades. Official statements now reference a 2045 to 2050 horizon for anything resembling full operation. Many of the most futuristic elements have quietly disappeared from the project's blueprints. The flying taxis remain grounded, the artificial moon has vanished from technical briefings, and the much-touted robot servants exist only as prototypes. The promise of 9 million residents living in a seamless, car-free utopia has given way to a site with no occupants and no functioning infrastructure. What was once marketed as a revolution in urban living now stands as a cautionary monument to ambition outpacing reality. 30 to 50 workers have died on NEOM's construction sites since the first foundation piles were driven into the desert. Most of these deaths are attributed to a relentless climate, where summer temperatures soar above 50 degrees Celsius. Day after day, migrant laborers, recruited from South Asia and Africa, pour concrete and weld steel in conditions that would halt work elsewhere. Medical logs and labor rights audits document dozens of heat stroke cases requiring hospitalization, yet safety protocols remain inconsistent and audits spotty. Workers speak of fainting on the job, of water rations running dry before noon, and of makeshift clinics overwhelmed by dehydration cases. Material prices have surged by 30 to 45% since 2021, driven by global inflation and supply chain shocks. Cement, steel, and imported glass now cost more than double the original estimates. Suppliers struggle to keep up, and construction schedules slip as procurement stalls. In 2023, Siemens Gamesa suspended its planned $200 million wind turbine factory, citing project uncertainty. EDF and other foreign partners have quietly withdrawn from major contracts, leaving the Public Investment Fund to absorb rising costs. The result is a site where progress slows, costs spiral, and the human toll deepens, all while the desert heat remains unyielding. In the shadow of NEOM's futuristic promises, entire communities have been erased from the map. In late 2019, government bulldozers arrived in Tabuk province, flattening habitat villages to clear land for the line. Families who had lived on this land for generations were ordered to leave, with soldiers enforcing evictions and sealing off wells. Some were offered compensation packages, but many refused, unwilling to abandon their heritage for cash and relocation to unfamiliar terrain. Those who resisted faced prosecution. By early 2020, 3 tribal elders were sentenced to death, accused of terrorism for protesting the demolitions. In May 2024, activist Abdul Rahim al-Huwaiti died in custody, his death sparking international outcry. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations condemned the forced removals and harsh sentences, warning of violations of both Saudi law and international conventions. Personal accounts collected by non-governmental organizations describe families living in tents after their homes were destroyed, livestock confiscated, and livelihoods lost. Reports surfaced of wage deductions from construction workers and of basic medical care denied to those injured or ill. While NEOM's official statements speak of progress and innovation, the human cost of displacement, repression, and death remains unacknowledged in the glossy marketing. International scrutiny continues, but for the habitat and many laborers, the damage is already done. The Public Investment Fund, once heralded as the financial engine behind NEOM, has poured nearly $28 billion into the project since its launch. This capital, intended to jumpstart construction and attract foreign investors, now serves as a lifeline as external funding dries up. In October 2022, the Public Investment Fund turned to the international bond market, issuing a green bond to raise additional capital for NEOM's infrastructure. The offering attracted institutional buyers, but at a yield of 3.2%, higher than anticipated, signaling rising skepticism among global investors. Meanwhile, Saudi oil revenues, the backbone of Vision 2030, have fallen by 6% since 2022, squeezed by OPEC plus production cuts and weaker global demand. With crude exports in decline, the fiscal space for megaprojects like NEOM is shrinking fast. By 2025, the fund's filings quietly acknowledged an $8 billion write-down on NEOM and related ventures, reflecting mounting cost overruns. The fund's annual reports now use vague language about potential additional funding, but offer little transparency on how much more risk the Saudi balance sheet can absorb. The engineering realities of the line reveal a project straining against the boundaries of what is physically possible. To build a city spine that runs 170 kilometers, engineers calculated a need for 1.2 million cubic meters of concrete and 10 million tons of steel, figures that rival the annual output of some entire countries. World Steel's own audits note that even a fraction of this demand would disrupt global supply chains, and the embodied carbon from so much concrete and steel stands at odds with any claim of sustainability. The single linear design means every resident depends on one continuous transit system, a spine with no redundancy. Any failure, technical, cyber, or mechanical, could immobilize the entire city. The promised vacuum tube pods and hydrogen-powered microgrids remain unproven at this scale. The pod system has only reached a 1-kilometer prototype, and Siemens' hydrogen electrolyzer is stuck at pilot capacity. eVTOL flying taxis, once a centerpiece, have never cleared regulatory or technical hurdles. Instead of a high-tech leap, the project faces a wall of unsolved engineering problems where the materials, systems, and technologies simply do not exist in the real world at the size and speed NEOM demands. Dubai's transformation into a global metropolis unfolded over 3 decades, beginning in the early 1990s. Each phase, from free zones to luxury towers and artificial islands, was delivered in measured steps, with new districts opening only after earlier stages had proven demand. The city's population grew alongside its skyline, and projects like the Burj Khalifa and Palm Jumeirah were financed through oil revenues and diversified investments, not speculative leaps. In Saudi Arabia, Qiddiya, the entertainment megaproject near Riyadh, has reached about 30% completion after 4 years. Its phased rollout has allowed developers to adjust to market shifts and pandemic disruptions, keeping the project solvent even as timelines stretch. The Red Sea project, aimed at luxury tourism, has finished roughly 45% of its first phase, with resorts and infrastructure already generating early revenue. Both Qiddiya and the Red Sea project have faced cost overruns and delays, but their incremental approach has kept them moving. NEOM, by contrast, staked everything on a single, all-at-once build. There are no completed districts, no early revenue, and no fallback plan. Where regional peers advanced step by step, NEOM's gamble on scale and speed has left it isolated, an outlier whose risks now threaten to eclipse the measured gains of its neighbors. Today, NEOM's empty corridors and unbuilt kilometers stand as a stark warning. When vision outpaces reality and accountability, the costs are counted in trillions and lives displaced. For every future city pitched on glossy renderings, NEOM reminds us that ambition without limits can become its own dystopia. What do you think?